It seems that we are persisting on a path of legislating discrimination and inequity.
Disagree with the premise. This is a bill that I think advances a different view, what I can call the American view. Country's founding documents, Thomas Jefferson wrote
that all of the names that you mentioned who built the foundations of this country were elite, slave-owning white men.
When I think back to what Tennessee Republicans set out to do,
members to which the House is entitled under Constitution of the state of Tennessee, House Resolution 65 is hereby adopted without objection and motion to reconsider is tabled.
Versus what they actually did, it makes me chuckle. Think about it. They set out to silence two of the youngest black representatives who, lack of a better term, put them in their place. And they failed, remarkably. Instead, they've elevated those very voices who have since returned to their place, seats they were democratically elected to, only now with even bigger megaphones and receipts in abundance.
We all have support for this body. All right, Representative Pearson, you have 3 minutes.
There is a movement rising up in Tennessee from Memphis to Nashville to Knoxville to send a message to these anti-democratic forces that you're in the find out portion.
Just last week, Representative Justin Jones pushed back on a GOP member using the Bible to excuse his bigotry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, my belief is in God. I settle other things with facts and data. The fact of the matter is, sir, this bill is not racist. It is not unconstitutional.
Representative Jones.
We keep bringing up God, but God says in Isaiah 10, woe to those who pass unjust laws that hurt the poor and rob them of their rights. And so stop using God to justify your bigotry. Stop using God to justify hatred and racism. Stop using God to put
Representative Jones, you are out of order.
And today, Justin Pearson came ready to discuss the Founding Fathers in response to a point made by Representative Boso as he tried to excuse his anti-trans sentiment.
It seems that we are persisting on a path of legislating discrimination and inequity.
Disagree with the premise. This is a bill that I think advances a different view, what I can call the American view. Country's founding documents, Thomas Jefferson wrote, among those self-evident truths, there were certain inalienable rights that all members of our human race were endowed with by their Creator, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is not, as you characterize it, Representative, an anti-anything bill. It is a bill that is squarely designed to make the people and our culture more virtuous, and frankly, virtue is something that we're lacking a bit in our culture right now.
It is so interesting that you changed the words of Thomas Jefferson from what he actually wrote, which was all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it is also interesting that all of the names that you mentioned who built the foundations of this country were elite, slave-owning white men. It is fascinating that you think those are the virtues that we need to propagate and support by passing anti-transgender children legislation. And how remarkable that you think you have the American view. How remarkable that you think you know what all Americans, all Tennesseans believe. And that if we are not supportive of this very narrow, discriminatory view, there's something wrong with our virtues. When in fact, the lack of democratic behavior, the lack of supporting of inclusion, the lack of supporting people for who they truly are, that is against who we are. That's why you even had to try and change the name from all men to all people. Well, transgender people are people, Representative, and deserve to be treated as such by this body too.
Out of order.
I genuinely believe we're going to be viewed pretty poorly, that we're on the wrong side of this.
And what you're seeing now is the old guard are rattled. They threw everything and the kitchen sink at these young lawmakers because they're scared. They're scared of what these young men represent, a shift. They're losing their grip in areas that were often a foregone conclusion because they were in red states, which was never more apparent than in the wake of the Nashville school shooting, as more and more young people become active and have a say.
Find out portion. That you shut off our microphones, and so we had to bring a megaphone. that you pushed our people to the back, so we had to walk up to the front of the well. And so we have a clear message that our brother Pierce is going to join us. We know, I'm confident, because I know that after crucifixion comes resurrection. And so when we walk in that chamber on tomorrow as representatives again, we must continue the demands that led us there in the first place. That a week after a mass shooting hit Nashville, rather than pass common sense gun laws, they passed a resolution to expel the 2 youngest black members in the General Assembly. And so we walk in there tomorrow with a clear message that we have a demand of Cameron Sexton to resign.
And the subject was touched upon on the House floor today, as Democrat Mark Pocan pointed out that if Republicans truly cared about protecting kids, as they say, while waging these culture wars, they'd focus on the thing that is the #1 killer of children in America.
All they care about is building their political brand and uplifting their fundraising. How do I know they really don't care about girls and women in sports? Does anything in this bill address the severe inequities between men's and women's sports? Not one word. In fact, most women's sporting groups oppose the bill. And if it's about keeping kids safe, well, if it was, then we would be doing something about keeping guns out of school. Crickets on that. Well, fortunately, not all Republicans agree. The Republican governor of Utah vetoed similar legislation highlighting the daily challenges trans kids already go through, from bullying to suicide. He shared how many trans kids play school sports in his state. 4 trans youth, only 1 a girl. There's your raging national problem. What's the Republicans' response to this non-existent issue? Hurt kids for being kids by banning them from playing in school sports, and even being as extreme as saying all female athletes as young in their preteen years could be subject to personal bodily inspection by adults to prove that they're a girl. Look, I know not everyone may understand this or may not know someone who's transgender, but just because you don't understand something isn't a good enough reason to outright ban kids from school sports. We may not be able to stop unscrupulous politicians overnight, but we can stop bad legislation from hurting good kids. I yield back.
The best part of waking up? MAGA Tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA Tears mug, available now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.